Thank you very much, Don. John Atkin is with us. He's a local historian. He's an author. We're talking about how Vancouver has changed in the last 20 years, but I just found out you never actually went to Expo.
No, it's just one of those things. You live in the city, there's this big fair over there, and you just...
Never went.
Kind of not.
John, you said that your apartment overlooked the Expo grounds.
Yeah, you could watch the fireworks at Expo, and you could watch the fireworks at Canada Place each night, and...
You figured, why do I need to go down there when it's right here in front of me?
Not really sure. There was just something about it just never got me grabbed enough to want to go down.
But in hindsight now, and you look back, can you see that this was a pretty pivotal moment in Vancouver's history?
And even then, I think. I think everyone knew that it was a pivotal moment because this was such a huge fair. And it was the first time, I think, really, that Vancouver was on the world stage in that manner. And so the exposure, the amount of folks that were coming into town, and I think just the general success of the fair. There were a lot of doubts at the beginning that, you know, was this going to work? And I think in the end, certainly partway into it, people knew this was a success, and so it was a major thing.
Well, let's talk about how it changed the city's landscape, because that's really where it is crucial. What was that area of land before Expo came along?
Well, it was just Canadian Pacific Railway freight yards, and so that, right from the early days, 1887 or so, freight trains. And so shunting boxcars back and forth, back and forth.
That's really ugly.
It was dead ugly. And
I mean,
think,
you look at it, there it is right there on the screen.
Yeah.
I mean, that's all it looked like right there. It was just nothing.
15 sawmills in Falls Creek, log booming grounds where the marinas are today.
Yeah.
And then you had other industry, and then you had the railways. And so, for instance, when the Royal Hudson was purchased by the province, that's where they used to run it back and forth on the tracks to get it ready for each season.
So was there a big controversy at the time when they decided that they were going to do away with this and they were going to make this the Expo land?
Well, it's an interesting and probably not enough time this morning to talk about all of the complications of how that
and there were a lot. I mean, look at what it looks like
assembled.
today, and this is as a result of Expo 86, right? 86,
yeah. That land assembly was done by the province. It was done actually as development. They were going to develop the property themselves, and then a change in premiers and philosophy meant that the land was sold off. So
you're saying that originally it was supposed to be the provincial government that developed all of that land?
The whole land, yeah. Because and again, it's complicated. Marathon Realty, Canadian Pacific Railway's real estate arm, had a plan, very similar actually to what ended up getting built. There were some conflicts with the city, and at the same time the province was looking for a site to build the stadium. And at some point in purchasing the stadium lands, they ended up purchasing the whole property.
Right.
And the intent was to do development, and there was again 5 years of negotiations with the city, and then somebody said, well, Grace McCarthy, I think, was in London and sort of said, hey, why can't we have a World's Fair? And I think Patrick Reed said, well, nobody's ever asked. And so
that was the end of that.
That was that.
How crucial was it, though, in showing people that this could be a key area of Vancouver? People had probably never even thought about that space before.
No, all the focus was in the downtown. Georgia and Granville was still sort of the hot spot for everything. I think the important thing was shifting that focus over to the creek. And some of the focus had already happened with Granville Island and the South Shore, but still that North Shore was just a mess. And so all of that lower end of the downtown peninsula was low-scale industry. It was warehousing, it was trains, that type of thing.
So in terms of land use development then, would you say that we've done a fairly good job, or it's done well in terms of the last 20 years?
Oh, it's been brilliant.
Yeah?
It's been...
Because there was a lot of controversy at the time when Concord Pacific did buy that area. What was going to happen? Could you turn this over to a private developer? What a terrible idea. But your thoughts now?
The biggest conflict was we've sold it in one big chunk to one guy.
Yeah.
And he didn't pay enough for it, and we've been robbed.
And at the time, it was, what, $100 million? A little more than $100 million, I believe.
Yeah, various figures, but maybe up to around $200 million even. But in hindsight, it was the best possible thing to do. If we'd sold that off in little pieces, we would have had a mess down there in terms of all these little short-term sort of, what do I get out of the site right now? By selling it as one piece, you had somebody who actually came in and said, 20 years, 25 years, sure, we can do that. And that process of development and the master plans and all of what we worked out there now shows up in the Cole Harbour development, shows up in the downtown south, and shows up, in fact,
all over there.
All of what we do in Vancouver, where people are now coming to the city to study what we've done. And we've sort of tried it out and worked it out through the Expo lands, and that total development is still being done. Again, it needed to be done as one piece.
Well, it's been an amazing 20 years, John. Thank you very much for your time this morning. It really has. 7:22, you're watching Breakfast Television.